If you've been eating a high protein diet, but you still feel inflamed, tired, or like your weight loss has hit a brick wall, I have something a little bit shocking to tell you. You've been told that protein is a free macro, that you can eat as much as you want without it ever affecting your insulin. But if you've been eating the wrong types of protein or grazing on it all day long, you might be spiking your insulin and locking your body out of fat burning mode. Today, we're going to be performing an audit on your protein intake. We're going to focus on 3 specific mistakes that are stalling your progress and keeping your insulin high. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to use protein in the right way to keep your insulin stable and get faster results. Now, before we dive into the mistakes, let's get one thing very clear. I am a huge fan of protein. Protein is a non-negotiable for human life. It's the building block of your muscles, your bone matrix, your enzymes, and your neurotransmitters. Unlike carbohydrates, which your body can survive without, protein is an essential requirement. If you stop eating it, your body will literally start harvesting its own organs and muscles to get what it needs. When we talk about insulin spikes from protein, I don't want you to panic. I'm not saying that protein is bad or that you should limit it like you do sugar. The reason that an insulin response isn't a bad thing when it comes from something like steak is twofold. First, it's a significantly smaller and more stable spike than you get from something like pasta or bread. Second, protein is the only macro that triggers a counterbalancing hormone called glucagon. Glucagon is like the anti-insulin. It tells your liver to release energy instead of storing it. Now, the problem we're facing in 2026 isn't with protein itself. The problem is how we are packaging that protein and how often we are putting it into our system. Because if you're insulin resistant, your body is essentially deaf to hormone signals. It handles protein different than a metabolically flexible person would. So we have to change the delivery method to make sure that that protein actually goes to muscle repair and doesn't end up turning into extra glucose. To understand how a high protein diet might be failing you, you have to look at something called cellular signaling. Inside your body, you have 2 primary fuel sensors that act like a seesaw. On one side, you have mTOR. This is your body's primary growth switch. When you eat protein, specifically the amino acid leucine, mTOR flips on. It tells your body, we have building blocks. Let's build muscle, let's repair skin, let's grow. And this is a good thing, but it is a building state and not a burning state. On the other side of the seesaw, you have AMPK. This is your energy burning switch. AMPK only flips on when energy is low, specifically when insulin is low. This is the switch that triggers fat burning and cellular cleanup, also known as autophagy. Now here's where a reframe needs to come in. If you're insulin resistant, your cells are already loud. They are inflamed. They're not processing energy correctly. When you eat a massive amount of lean, isolated protein, think of those dry chicken breasts or white fish fillets without any fat, your body faces a dilemma. It has all the building material, protein, but if you aren't eating carbs and you aren't eating fat, it doesn't have the energy to run the construction crew. In response, your liver performs a survival trick called gluconeogenesis. And this is a fancy way of saying your body turns protein into glucose, literally turning that turkey breast into sugar. But why does this happen? It's because your body is terrified of having no fuel. If you don't have fat as a fuel source and you're avoiding carbs, the liver takes the expensive protein and burns it as cheap sugar. And this creates a secondary insulin spike. You might think you're eating well by eating lean protein, but you're actually forcing your body to make its own internal sugar. And you end up stuck in a state of high insulin because your body is lacking that fuel source. And this brings us to the first major mistake I see. Eating protein without fat. In the old school fitness world, we've been brainwashed to eat egg whites, lean turkey, and steamed fish. We've been told for decades that fat makes you fat. But the truth is, fat is actually our friend. And it should be your very good friend, especially when it comes to reversing insulin resistance and weight loss. Fat is the only macronutrient that has almost 0 impact on your insulin levels. When you eat protein in its natural whole food form, the way nature intended, it almost always comes with fat. Think of steak, a whole egg, or fish with the skin on. When you eat fat and protein together, it acts like a biological brake. It slows down gastric emptying, the speed at which food leaves your stomach. This means the protein is absorbed slowly and steadily. This slow absorption prevents the liver from getting overwhelmed and prevents that emergency conversion of protein into sugar. Furthermore, fat releases satiety hormones in your gut. These are the I'm full signals. If you eat lean chicken breast, you might feel physically full because of the food volume, but your brain remains hungry for energy. And this is why you might crave a sweet treat after a seemingly healthy meal. By skipping the fat, you're leaving your brain in a state of energy deprivation, which keeps your stress hormones like cortisol high. And as we know, high cortisol, like you guessed it, leads to high insulin. We need to move away from that lean protein mindset and focus on eating protein in its whole food form. The second mistake I see is choosing protein that comes wrapped in carbohydrates. This is the biggest issue with the modern push for plant-based protein sources like lentils, chickpeas, beans, or quinoa. And while these foods are marketed as high protein, when we actually look at the nutritional breakdown, what they really are is high carb and moderate protein. Let's look at the math. If you eat a cup of cooked lentils, you're getting about 18 grams of protein, which might sound great. But to get that 18 grams of protein, you have to consume about 40 grams of carbohydrates. Now, for someone who's metabolically healthy, for an athlete, that's not a problem at all. They need that energy and they're going to use it easily. But for anyone who's watching this video with insulin resistance, that 40 grams of carbs is a massive hit to your insulin levels. You can't get the protein without the sugar spike. Additionally, we have to talk about protein quality. Animal proteins are complete, meaning they contain all essential amino acids in the right ratios. Plant proteins are incomplete. They either don't contain all essential amino acids or they don't have them in the right amounts. When your body receives an incomplete protein, it can't use it for muscle repair as effectively. So what does the body do with that extra incomplete material? It sends it to the liver to be turned into, you guessed it, glucose. If your goal is to lower your insulin and repair your metabolism, you need complete protein sources. And that's why animal and plant protein just don't compare. The third mistake I see might be one that's destroying your progress the most, and that's grazing on protein all day long. We've been told for the last 30 plus years to eat 6 small meals a day in order to keep our metabolism revving. This is one of the most damaging pieces of advice in modern nutrition. Every single time you put food in your mouth, even if it's a healthy, high-protein snack like a cheese string, a handful of almonds, a piece of beef jerky, you trigger an insulin response. Even if it's small, it's there. And if you're eating every 2 to 3 hours, your insulin never has a chance to come back down to baseline in between meals. Think of your insulin like a tide. For fat burning to happen, the tide has to go out. But if you're constantly grazing on protein all day long, the tide is always coming in. You're keeping your body in a storage state from the moment you wake up until the moment you go to sleep. Now, the ideal framework for meals for reversing insulin resistance, for losing weight, is 2 to 3 meals that are rich in protein and fat, and no snacks per day. If you're eating enough protein and fat at your meals, you shouldn't be hungry for 4, 5, 6 hours in between. If you're finding yourself reaching for a snack at 3 p.m., this is a red flag that you didn't eat enough protein and/or fat. By cutting the snacks and focusing on your meals, you actually end up getting a little bit of intermittent fasting time in throughout the day. So how can we fix this starting today? Here's an actionable guide for mastering protein for your metabolic health. The first step is to prioritize the 1-to-1 ratio. When you look at your plate, aim for a roughly 1-to-1 ratio of protein to fat. If you're eating lean protein like chicken breast or shrimp, add some fat. Top with some butter, add half an avocado or a handful of olives. If you choose fatty cuts of meat like ribeye, chicken thighs, or sardines, the work is already done for you. Step 2 is to follow the whole food rule. While I'm not against protein as a convenience tool, and if you're really struggling to hit your protein intake, they are technically pre-digested and hit your system really fast, which can cause a sharper insulin spike. Aim to get 80% of your protein from whole animal-based sources. The structure of whole food requires more energy to break down, which further stabilizes your blood sugar. And the third step is the 4-hour rule. After you finish a meal, commit to a 4 to 5 hour window where you consume nothing but water, black coffee, and plain tea. No bars, no snacks, no grazing. Let your insulin drop. This is when fat burning actually happens. Now, of course, if you are desperate for a snack, if you do need something, then high protein and fat snacks are going to be the best choice. This framework isn't about being perfect. It's about making the right choices as often as you can. Because I know life happens. Sometimes you're stuck in an airport, you have back-to-back meetings, and the only thing available is a quick snack. And yes, in those moments, a high protein snack is going to be a better option than a bag of chips or a muffin. But the mistake people make is letting those emergency snacks become a daily habit. They think of high protein snacks as a free pass to keep eating all day long. Don't let better become the enemy of best. The ideal is 2 to 3 meals with gaps of fasting in between. The reality is, some days you'll only get 70% of the way there, and that's okay. Your metabolism isn't broken or made on a single day. It's built by the consistency of your cellular signals over weeks and months. Your high protein diet isn't failing because protein is bad. You're not eating too much protein. You just might be eating the wrong types of protein or eating them in the wrong way. By adding fat, choosing animal-based sources, and stopping the grays, you're finally giving your body permission to unlock its fat stores. Now, if you found this video helpful, you might want to check out this one next. In it, I talk about 3 healthy habits I used to follow religiously that were keeping me inflamed.